walk this road together, no matter where it leads. Put aside your burdens, put away your fears, or I'll carry them as I'd carry you until the very end. Somewhere out there waiting is a place where we know peace, that calls to us, that beckons us, a place where we'd be free. Put aside your burdens, put away your fears, and I'd carry them as I carry you until the very end.
Good evening and welcome back to the Dwarven Fortress of Keskalokil, where we have been slowly pouring magma into the river because that's a sensible thing to do. So far we have blocked half of the width of the river with obsidian and got terribly confused by the behaviour of minecarts. But I've been researching the behaviour of minecarts and I think I know what went wrong. And I think I might know how to solve one of our other minecart problems. But it might be a bit of an exploit and I'm not sure whether I should do it. So the minecart problem that I think I can solve by entirely legit means is that when someone pushes a minecart along this track and lets it go, and thus the minecart is actually like obeying physics, kind of physics, when it descends this ramp, it kind of turns this corner, but then derails around here off to the right. And that, I believe, is caused by the fact that this square here is a curving ramp, which means, so when a minecart goes around a curve, it leaves the square precisely in the exit direction. Now that's not quite true. It halfway through the square changes to precisely the exit direction. But this ramp is not, because the ramp goes south and west, the ramp keeps applying some northward acceleration. So when the minecart actually leaves the square, it's going mostly west and slightly north. And therefore a few squares later it derails to the north. So what we need to do is to arrange that we don't use a curving ramp to get round that corner, we use a level ramp. Which I think we can do by just having the ramp happen before the corner, and then everything will be fine. So in order to test this, I think I want to set up a small minecart route that involves sending a lightweight minecart along a small part of this track, and then rescuing it and then sending it again. So let's create that. So if we add just a single stop here with a condition that's just push off west immediately, always. And then assign a random battered old wooden minecart to it. Have we got any battered wooden? Well, we've got a wooden minecart at least, on the grounds that it will take less time to haul that back to its to the starting point when it turns out not to work.
Have you got any battered old wood minecarts? No, but I could batter a new one.
Yes, yes, there is a bit of that. Well, it turns out we have got a battered old wooden minecart, but it's in use, so. Meanwhile, this this dwarf here is happily melting down all the goblinites, so that's nice. And we have a big heap of goblin bits there, which can now be shoveled into this minecart, which is not as efficient as it might have been, an approach as you might have, but it will do for now. Until we devise an entire system for automatically flooding the goblin graveyards with magma in order to vaporise their corpses, which we could do later. So yes, my hope is that now someone will haul a wooden minecart from our stock of wooden minecarts up here. Can I see someone hauling a wooden minecart anywhere? Not immediately. Up to that track, give it a quick shove and demonstrate that the problem still exists. Demonstrate that the problem can be reproduced with a wooden minecart, and then we can fix the problem and demonstrate that it's fixed without having to lug a steel minecart up from the depths. Right, you're hauling a cherry wood minecart, right, good.
Appraiser, surgeon, brewer, cook and perm doctor, but your actual job is broker and you're moving a minecart.
Yes. Well, most people here are legendary surgeons. Right, so we put the minecart there, and now you're going to... Oh, are you going to help with the shoveling stuff into this minecart then? Rather than like giving that other one a quick push. Yeah, so now, like, dwarves are just going... and this one, and like bouncing back and forth between those two squares. Meanwhile, I hope someone is going to come and push this minecart, and then we can see it go wrong, and then we can fix the problem. That's the wrong list. I want to look at the task list and see if anyone is actually doing push track vehicle. Lots of people are storing items in vehicles, are there? Right. Let's hope you're going to push the correct track vehicle and not the one right at the bottom. Actually, I think the one right at the bottom, if the steel minecart has been delivered, as it looks like it might have been. Let's have a quick look downstairs. Yes, nothing will happen to that until we fill it with magma anyway. Which we won't do right now because we're busy experimenting on the railway line. So let's follow this object. So it trundles off. I'm now single stepping this, albeit quite fast. And oh, actually it derails immediately there, but because possibly it has a different amount of momentum than a metal one, because the metal one I'm pretty sure derailed on this floor. Anyway, oh, but it's going at a different speed because it was pushed from here rather than here. Yes, right. So we've demonstrated that this minecart demonstrates the problem, as it were. Let's forbid that minecart for a moment so that it... No, actually, we'll let it get hauled up to the start again and we'll forbid it before it gets pushed off. So what are we going to want to do to fix this? We're going to want to demolish that track because we'll want to make a hole in the ground there, and demolish that track there as well. And hope a miner can turn up and help us with that shortly. Why did you just step on the track? I'm trying to prevent people walking on the railway line, but apparently they don't. Like, I've built a nice footbridge for you and everything.
Look, they're dwarves.
The railway line is all marked low traffic because you're not meant to walk on it.
Low traffic. Oh, that must mean it's safe for me to cross.
Oh, it means you're meant to add quite a lot to the cost of walking through that square. Let's mark this section as even lower traffic.
No lower than that.
Yes.
Maybe that
Restricted traffic.
the dwarf wants to dig a hole in it to make the traffic lower.
Obviously, it doesn't apply to cats.
Well, that's because cats are cats. And you can never
Yes.
stop cats doing anything.
Right, let's now forbid that minecart before someone pushes it off again. Because we want to, for now, keep it there until we've done our building work. I'm now thinking that obviously it should be like a platinum minecart or something in order to ensure that any other minecart just comes to a halt when it runs into it. But that wouldn't work because the platinum minecart would nonetheless move because we don't actually have brakes on these minecarts. Right. All right, that's that square.
Minecart's lava safe.
I can't remember, but they're heavy. That's
Yes,
the point.
but I'm not sure this helps if you then try and put lava.
Yes, I'm not trying to. I was trying to use something. Think of something I could use to block the railway in order to stop people shoving minecarts full of magma past me.
Won't this just mean that dwarves try and shove the platinum minecart
Yes.
very, very slowly?
Yeah, I think actually just not filling the minecart with magma will solve my problem much better. Right, so we now just have a hole in the ground. That appears to have demolished the ramp as well, but that's fine. So let's wait until we've got this demolished and then make a new hole and hence a new ramp and then build some new track up it. Unfortunately, I think because that didn't end up with a ramp, the miner is now having to take the long way round between the two locations. And, oh God, I have a horrible feeling the long way round may mean via the very depths of the fortress. Also, build that wall, damn you.
This is sandstone.
Yes, I wonder if that's sandstone. No, that one has to stay suspended because we can't build that wall until we've built that wall. But yeah, I fear that our miner is currently going all the way down to the bottom of that ramp. Possibly, I mean, I could add extra access points, but on the other hand, the more access points there are, the more likely someone is to try to use it as a shortcut. So possibly part of the answer to that is just to have a maintenance track alongside the railway. We do seem to be like caging surprising animals rather a lot. I mean, that at least is a genuine crab. But why have we got
It's a fake crab.
another rooster cage? Are we repeatedly caging the same rooster?
I didn't realise the cage trap would catch me. And then when they let me out, I didn't realise it would catch me again.
I mean, the thing is, roosters are not noted for their, deep ratiocination.
We do seem to be quite well off for cages at the moment. Possibly we need to build more cage traps. Or a zoo. Right, we are actually starting finally to stockpile copper up here in case we need it for something, which is nice. Are those mosquitoes? A brief glimpse. Oh, yes, they are. I thought. Cloud of insects over a pond. Probably mosquitoes. Suppose we could now start filling all the ponds in with obsidian. I'm sure that'll be great for the local ecology. I mean, it'd be good for not drowning dwarves.
animals drown in ponds often?
We've had at least one. We can tell because there's still a skeleton. Oh, that wasn't the skeleton I was expecting. I thought there was a child who drowned in a pond, but that's definitely an adult.
You need to make a memorial or their ghost.
No, they don't belong to the fort anyway.
Okay.
I think we might have an outstanding memorial waiting to be installed, though, now I come to think of it. Yes, there does appear to be. He says, hang on, is that actually the name of this? It might actually. We might need to make them a memorial, and we might have made them a memorial. Let's build it and see who it's a memorial to. Yes, I think we did. Well, we'll go and read that once it's been erected. But I think, given they're lying dead at the bottom of a pond, we probably know what they died of.
Well, probably drowning, but it could be goblins.
Right, so all of that first pile of goblin bits has been put into the second minecart, and now we're refilling this minecart with goblin bits.
Because, God forbid, we run out of goblin bits.
But we're trying to run out of goblin bits. That's the point of these minecarts, is to allow us to more efficiently dispose of the bits that the goblins leave behind.
However, goblins keep coming in with more bits.
Yes. Right, we've now successfully removed that. So now we can dig a downward ramp here. And then relay the track along that ramp. Peregrine, oops, that's peregrine corpse, we don't want that. It's a stray dog tongue, we definitely don't want that. I do notice we don't seem to have much by way of carrion lying around in the in this area anymore, which is nice. Oh, here comes someone with a giant blue jay corpse. Oh, we'll scrap that. Oh, are you going to butcher it immediately? No. They're going to dump it immediately. Excellent. Right, now we have a ramp, so now we can go build a track from there to there out of copper bars, and then don't build that square and don't build that square because those should work already. Right. So now the ramp will be north-south and the south-west will be not ramp. So that should help. Now we just need someone to do that building. Let's have a quick look and see if there's anything else that will obviously screw up. Okay, that's got suspended again. See if we can find out why. Structure cancelled. Okay, the cobaltite slab has been suspended by an agitated peregrine falcon. So this one appears to have suffered from cannot reach site, which, like, well, the ramp appears to be intact, albeit that it's a bit tricky to get at. Let's just try maybe it was while something was blocking, while we had a gap in the track. Let's try resuming it once more and seeing if it immediately cancels again. So I think there's some danger that this corner will cause the same kind of derailment, but we'll watch. We'll see what happens when we send our test minecart down there. Peregrine Falcon Corpse can go. Someone actually going to build my minecart track, or are they all busy? They're not all busy down here filling up a minecart. Indeed, the minecart is currently trundling slowly, being propelled by a dwarf. Still going to need to be refilled once more, I think. And like, this is a very slow way to move minecarts around. Compared with riding them. Right, someone just crossed there. Let's build a quick copper footbridge there. Right, someone is now building minecart tracks. Cancels construct building, cannot reach site again. Right. Oh, I need to resume the slab, of course. Not that that's relevant, but... So I think there is a problem with, for some reason, we're getting cannot reach site messages for here repeatedly. Let's engage in some extreme silliness. God, no, I don't want to build a long tunnel here because it's going to end up being wet. Let's build a tunnel into the... oh, why is there no ramp there then, eh? Is that somehow related? Well, let's just dig a tunnel on this dry level into there. And we can always put a locked door on it afterwards. That might make it more practical to stop the water getting in. Right, so the tracks are now in place. So let's now unforbid that minecart again. And see how far it goes this time.
Any point. Let's try and escape the Tomb Raider fan trap. Well, an incompetent state and a very flappy trousers. Still trying to change it, but
I think someone might be about to come and push this. Right, so if we single step it round the corner again. Notice how quickly it went round that corner. I think we may be... Oh! That's amusing. What? Okay, no, it is working properly. It just looked like it went off to the side briefly, but maybe it managed to somehow re-rail itself. Anyway, it goes faster and faster and faster. Ah, yes, I think one thing that appears to allow us to hugely slow down a minecart is when we have a transition from level to downward slope. the minecart actually leaps over the transition, crashes into the wall above the slope, and thus loses all its horizontal velocity, and then drops onto the slope and starts accelerating again. So that's a really crude and somewhat accidental way of slowing minecarts down.
Then it's a state.
But the minecart has reached the end of its route correctly, including derailing at the bottom here, thus leaping over onto this track. So that's good. It does lead to a question of how we safely fill the minecart with magma when it reaches the bottom. I'm having thoughts about that. Obviously we can't safely fill this minecart with magma because it's made of wood, but so the problem is, as we've seen, when a minecart goes off a level track onto a ramp, if it's going reasonably fast, it doesn't actually move onto the downward ramp. It instead continues horizontally into the open air and will describe a nice downwards parabola, which will eventually intersect the ramp, but probably several squares and several Z levels later. Which means that if what I want to do is to cut a little trench here. Oh, actually, it hasn't reached the end yet. I've just realised I paused this at the wrong moment. That minecart is about to fall to there and then trundle along the remaining bit of track. So, yes, if I just flood this area with magma and have an upward ramp, the minecart will run along here, go clonk into this wall, fall down and accelerate slightly, and then not be able to get back up the ramp out of the magma again. So what we need to do is to arrange that the minecart doesn't take off. Well, the aim here is to fill this with magma once and then send the minecart through it repeatedly, collecting magma each time. Steph asks, why does magma not melt or burn minecarts? Oh, for the most part it does. This is why we have to be quite careful about what we make our minecarts out of. Specifically, we make them out of steel, which is hot enough, has a high enough melting point not to be melted by magma.
You can make that of mercury because that way they're already melted.
Gareth suggests making them out of mercury because that way they're already melted. There are two problems with this. One is they're already melted, and two...
They're already melted. No, I realise.
Actually, no, there are three problems with this. One, they're already melted. Two, they would evaporate. And three, dwarves don't know how to refine mercury out of cinnabar yet. So what we need to do then is to, I think, have a slightly longer ramp that accelerates minecarts downwards into the magma. There is a second answer, which is that this only happens when a minecart transitions from a horizontal non-ramp onto a ramp on the Z level below. So what you can do is have a kind of fake ramp at the top of the transition that causes the minecart to not leave the surface. Pinkbee says, I was wondering more how water can get into the minecarts to teach dwarves how to swim, but magma can't get out. That's quite simple. When dwarves ride minecarts, they don't sit in the minecart. The minecart's full of stuff, or at least is potentially full of stuff. They ride it by standing on the back, or possibly the front. There's a platform, I think, for the dwarves to ride on. So they can totally ride on a minecart full of magma. They just don't ride in the minecart. That would be silly. They would catch fire. So what I think I want thus is actually to build more of an upward ramp here and essentially have that same crash into the wall and drop. Have we caused any serious damage to this minecart? No. Despite the fact it's crashed into several walls on the way down. and then we intercept. Then we have the minecart do the crash, drop, accelerate again, like through about 3 Z levels, and then it can go up 1 Z level full of magma. We hope, if there isn't too much friction. Oh yes, I was going to look up. We don't quite. What is approximately the friction for 1 square in magma? Oh look, I have the Dwarf Fortress wiki page on minecarts here. Water depths of 7/7 is about 10,000 per step. So if each ramp gives you about 5,000 per step, and all of this is horribly awkward because it's all per unit time rather than per unit distance, but which I think is actually correct for friction, though possibly not for friction caused by magma. But that says to me like a few Z levels will be enough to accelerate the minecart enough that it'll go through a very short bit of magma, especially because I think we can fake this a bit with the checkpoint effect, but we won't mention how that works. As in, what that means is minecarts, after transitioning between ramp and level, often don't get quite as much friction as they should have got. But what I think that means is we actually want to have this dip down into the magma only fairly briefly. We don't want like 5 squares of magma. What were you thinking, Harris? And instead we want to have an upward ramp basically immediately. I think what I was thinking is we want the minecart to go arcing or parabolaing elegantly down into the magma, but I don't think that's actually sensible. I think we want to accelerate it down a steep ramp and have it go splish and straight back out again 1 or 2 squares later. So I think what that means is that first we want to dig out a bit more space here so that we can like see what we're doing, and we want to dig another hole here which will be the upward ramp, and then we'll construct a ramp here out of the local granite, and then probably construct a wall there, but let's not do that at least until we've retrieved this minecart. And then we're also going to want like a horizontal ramp that picks up a descending minecart somewhere down here. How can we achieve that while not excessively disconnecting the upward track? We could arrange that the downward minecart jumps onto the new bit of track, couldn't we? There's far too much blithering going on in IRC. Steph was doubting the material science of Dwarf Fortress. Okay, now I'm really confused by that corpse. Tozid Edel Nodub has been put to rest with a cobaltite slab. This is a memorial to Tozid Abel Nodub. It reads, in memory of Tozil Abel Nodub, Born 97, struck down by the goblin awestruck idle dungeon with a silver pike in Snosno, the assault of evisceration in the year 111. Slayer of the goblin Aslot taxflies. At one with Amber. Okay, we were wrong. Tozid Obel Nodub did not die of drowning. And rather oddly, their corpse has just changed what it looks like. It was an @ sign before, and now it's gone back to being a smiley face. Wonder if they somehow, oh gods, I wonder if when they were a ghost, their corpse stopped being owned by them, and so it became a non-fortress corpse. And now now that the ghost has been laid to rest, it's one of the fortress's native corpses again, and so it appears in corpse colours. Right, here comes someone removing the minecart, so it's no longer in the way. So it won't matter if I wall off that corridor now. I suppose a descending minecart. So what are we going to want to do? We can guarantee that a descending minecart will be coming down at stupid speed, can't we, by here? So if we're going to divert it at, say, 2Z levels up, we're going to want to divert the descending minecart at this level. So that's going to need... Let's dig out a hole there for access. Actually, no. Let's dig out an upward ramp there, so that when we screw things up, we can repair them reasonably easily. Well, I don't think we're actually going to need that to be an upward ramp, but let's do that anyway. No, don't want upward ramps there. That would be silly. So then the idea is that we'll dig a horizontal corridor here. We'll build a horizontal track across this hole in the floor, and then we'll do something silly in order to allow minecarts that are coming up that ramp to bypass the... Actually, we can do that fairly simply, can't we? We'll dig another gap round here. That will be for bypassing that with minecarts. There is a miner on their way down, but it'll take them a bit of a while to get here. And then we'll want like a horizontal track to somewhere around here. On the subject of minecarts full of magma, I was looking at some of Deutsche Bahn's specs for their wagons, and there were some that were like, you can fill this with steel coils at up to like 700 degrees centigrade, but you can't actually send it on our railway until they've cooled down. So like, maximum temperatures of things you can ship by train is actually an important question. Right, now we want to build a wall here to make that track usable. Right, we have another miner coming down to work on that section. Well, I'm sure it'll all be fine eventually when they get down here. Right, so let's now pay some attention to what's going on here. So that then makes it practical to get to there. That's now a hole in the ground that we can...
I get the domination, but singles, I don't get the singles. Well, the singles bar is where adult things are likely to happen. Is it a play with puzzle placed at one of the puzzle in my foot? Is it?
Right.
You didn't say which half you didn't understand. Well, I didn't know what I didn't understand about it.
So that's... then what we can do is we can have the minecart just ram into this wall here, hopefully not spill all of its magma, and then someone can come and push it back. Ooh, if they're going to push it back, we do actually need enough track to be able to get it back, if we back onto the track. So let's dig that square out, and then we can do a loop of track round here and then a T-junction back into there. Right, so there's some people working on that. So now we could... Let's try just saying carve track from there. Okay, if I do that, it'll insist on going around in a loop. That's already actually got the track carved, so... No, I don't mean that. I do actually want to carve it, not build it. So let's go from there, which is already track. If I do that, it immediately goes up the wrong ramp. I don't actually know if we can carve... Can we maybe not carve the block track? Maybe we actually need to build that. Yeah. Oh, has that ramp been... Yes, the ramp has been constructed. Oh, but the wall hasn't been constructed, so the ramp doesn't work yet. Right, yeah, that all makes sense. Stop worrying. It'll be fine in a bit. Right, so we're suffering from... all of the walls around here are warm because we're rather too close to the magma. Actually, of course, that means we don't have to have the minecart able to come up from where it currently is. Except possibly once. That suggests we should actually run the minecart up to the top of its route. Because it's not very... If it's down here and our way to fill it with magma involves sending it at some speed into this pool, that's not going to be very helpful. Let's do a cycle of don't start the pump without closing the door. See, this is why I want to change how this system works. Though actually I'm a little bit scared that it's going to turn out that this sprays magma mist everywhere and kills all the dwarves in the process. So I mean, it won't immediately kill the dwarves, it'll just set fire to them.
By just having a blockage in the grid. If you can square, you can't slide anything through it.
Okay, we do appear to be mining without difficulty, actually. So, yes, it's possible I don't need that space there. Oh well. can at least designate, oh no, not for smoothing, for track building, track carving. Right, so how do we have this descend then? So what we want is for there to be an upward ramp there, which we're going to actually need to build. Let's build that. And then dig some more corridor. Because we're also going to want a wall there. So then that's going to be an upward ramp. So it will then, oops. So that will then be a downward ramp on this Z level. Let's just go into, let's actually work out how we dig this from above. So that's going to be an upward ramp, which means that indeed already is it's marked as being an upward ramp, which means that square there will be a downward ramp, which means that square there will be an upward ramp, which means that square there will be a downwards ramp. Right. Oh, it's another vile force of darkness, but we're trying to do useful things. Yes, we have unfortunately half dammed the river.
I was wondering what the purpose of this was, since the river is a structural part of your defence.
So that we can get the water out of it, and so that we can more efficiently extract other things from it. I want to be able to turn the river off.
But does the dam not also create a path for goblins?
Yes, it does, which is why it's meant to be temporary. The idea is to dam the river with obsidian and then place floodgates across it and then remove the obsidian again. But I'm only halfway through this process. Right, let us pull the lever that closes the eastern gates. We'll forbid that minecart for now. We appear to already have 2 forbidden goblin corpses there waiting to be hurled into the sea. Possibly we should reject the parley immediately, so that there are relatively few goblins here. But on the other hand, there are also no dwarves here. No, let's not do that. Just do our usual kind of arrangement. But there is a bit of a danger. Actually, no, we'll send them up to here, and then slightly unusually we'll have the Veiled Smiths and the Moons of Bolting further south and further in case the goblins cross over at that point and survive the crossing. Hang on, that's not what I meant. I meant move to there. Right. Let's wait a bit for the dwarves to organise themselves. in particular. Wait until we've got the bridges raised. There they are. Right, good. Wait until we've got a reasonably decent quantity of military dwarves in place. And they aren't all going, oh, where's my stuff? You know, enormous quantity of pick-up equipment tasks in progress. Mostly they are like heading in the correct direction though. Yeah, the cage traps won't get very many of them, sadly. Let's carry on waiting. Actually, while we're waiting, always slightly dubious about a dwarf on a minecart track covered in blood. I think there may possibly have been an incident involving the chief medical dwarf and a minecart. Yes. I forgot to forbid that minecart when it got hauled up to the surface. Well, it's in a reasonably safe place now. Let's forbid it here, because that section of track is not going to be reused. We've also successfully closed that door, which means we could start operating that pump. We've now got 4 dwarves in this group, and 0 in the one, oh no, 1 in the one that I think I'm summoning to here. I think we're going to need slightly more than that for this to be effective. A few more arriving up here now, good. Yay, a dwarf just used the footbridge. That's nice. Right, the goblins appear to have at least stopped arriving. The dwarves have not yet stopped arriving. So this group is still down to 1 dwarf. Quite a lot of goblins. We do hope they're good at drowning. Oh, 2 dwarves in this group. I think we're kind of hoping for more than that. Yeah, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 military dwarves trying to organise themselves. They are.
We can't stand in a rectangle.
They are very bad at this. I would like to not do anything until at least the vast majority of the military dwarves have actually got their asses into gear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, we're getting there now. Only 10 mill dwarves still to get their asses into gear. Three more turning up here. Good. So we've still got 4 get provisions jobs in progress. And 6 pick up equipment, so yeah, still 10. Once they've got themselves organised. Right, that is now full of magma, so we can turn off that pump and turn, oops, I got my pausing wrong there, turn on that pump. You going to come and do it, or have you got distracted? No, you're going to go and do something else. Okay. Two getting provisions. 4 picking up equipment. I presume eventually the goblins get bored with waiting for me to reject their parley, but it hasn't happened yet. One getting provisions, 5 picking up equipment. Not sure those were all actually military pick-up equipment jobs. Only 1 military dwarf picking up equipment and 2 military dwarfs getting provisions. One military dwarf drinking, 1 sleeping, 1 getting provisions. But we can't stop them occasionally needing to drink and sleep, so. Zero and 1. You're the one we're waiting for. Everyone's waiting for you. The war can't start until you arrive. Right. I mean, actually, I'm going to start the war once they've said they're coming and stopped faffing. Right. So let us say no. Denied. And then wait for the goblins to make the first move. Several of the first moves will be goblins get caught in cage traps, but not enough of them.
And then you'll just have to wait till the goblins make a competent move.
There are, of course, lots of them heading for the gap in the cage traps. Twang, 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 twang. We've got some of them at least. Twang. Well, that's most of the cage traps have caught a goblin.
Do cage traps go twang?
I don't know.
I think they go clang. Or click or something. Cliff on top of the wooden cage.
Oops. Already learning to tolerate dead goblins. I think they keep finding bits of dead goblin in the trees above them. And maybe they're wondering why we seem to have built an entire railway for moving dead goblins around. What do we know that they don't?
That's the Metropolis Railway, isn't it?
Yes. So they haven't yet tried leaping across the river at the obsidian dam. That's nice. Still edging their way up towards the delta, which is the best place to meet them. Slightly worried that we don't seem to have many dwarves up here. Lost the first one, I think. Oh, of course, there's a row of cage traps up here as well, so the first few goblins will just end up in cages here. And then it's quite hard to see those because they're on the same square as enormous piles of other stuff. Eventually a goblin is going to reach a point where they can try to cross the river. Oh, there's a goblin swordsman fighting. What are they doing? All right, they've run into a weapon trap, because we do still have some weapon traps around. And there's a goblin falling in the river. Excellent. That's an important part of the experience of trying to invade Keskalokil, is falling in the river.
Fortress of falling in the sea. Well, the river, but, you know.
Oh, I think the goblins managed to climb out of the river. Right, well. And now my dwarves spot the goblins and engage. Enormous quantities of flying crossbow bolts, airborne goblins. This all looks like it's working more or less like we want it to. I think actually, since we now know that the goblins will not attempt to cross at the obsidian dam, we can lower the south bridge and send the non-amphibious dwarves that way to go round the back of the goblins. While we fight our way through the goblins from this side. Oops. Playing too much CK2, I think the B is the key to go back. Yeah, that's not going to help you very much, is it? Poor goblin. Also, I feel that that's some very accurate stabbing. Oh no, it was in the... Yes, it stabbed in the left eye, but only actually tore apart the eyelid. So we can see there are quite a lot of drowning goblins now. I think those are mostly drowning goblins and not drowning dwarves. Yes. Quite a lot of grey on mid-blue, mind, but... Indeed, we can see, if we look at the goblins now, they're like mostly green, because those are mostly ranged weapons goblins. All of the melee goblins having already fallen into the river or been torn apart by dwarves.
Or just imagine the special weapons goblin.
So we need this bridge to lower quite soon. Right, that is an awful lot of crossbow bolts. They are quite good at this now. Is someone actually going to pull the lever? Has it got randomly cancelled? No, someone is meant to be pulling the lever. Oh, there we go. Lever pulled. So we can see there are some quite wet dwarves there, but they should all be capable of swimming. Right, river bridge is down, so now we can have these guys cross it and then head north and go and get the crossbow goblins in the back. That's the plan anyway. I think this is demonstrating the goblins trying to make space for themselves because they don't want to get too close to the melee dwarves, which will sadly not work very well because here's a second batch of dwarves. And some cage traps, incidentally. Right, and so that lot can then pick off that lot of goblins and we squish them between the two forces. You two shouldn't be charging at one another. You're on the same side. Right, and I think we're now mopping up the surviving crossbow goblins. Ideally without falling in the river. Oh dear. Might be a drowning militia commander. That's a bit worrying. Right, where are you drowning? Can we drain that fast? Yes, we probably can if we're careful. Frankly, let's just open all of the drains and see what happens. We mostly want to open drain C. Shouldn't let much in. Does the drains do overflow a bit if you open all of them. I mean, C is probably the main one, but we might also want to open B, which I just asked for. There's probably some benefit in opening A. If we can find the lever for A. Right, this might save you, or it might not, or you might be able to... Actually, can we just quickly check, does this... Unhappy dwarf know how to swim, as in, are you just surprised? No, you are actually not meant to be in that river, right? You, on the other hand, somewhere around there are a drowning goblin, and you're definitely meant to be in the river. Like, if the goblin survives and the dwarf survives, there's not going to be much of a problem for the dwarf to dispatch the goblin. This is going to depend on a high priority, at least one of those high priority lever pullings actually working. Oh dear. Right, no, too late. You've drowned. Let's just cancel the high priority. Do we cancel them? I think we're basically out of goblins anyway.
There's time limit goblins.
So I don't think...
Limited goblins, I think more.
Well, yes.
Let's actually open the drains anyway, because there won't be many more goblins to chase into them, to chase into the river. The goblin who was in the river has drowned as well. So we are continuing to run at our standard frequency of 1 dwarven death per goblin invasion. Don't quite know where the remaining goblins have got to. Let's see if we can find them. Ah, the remaining goblin, singular. Somewhere in the middle of the screen, we think. Well, I can't see them, but I'm sure the dwarves can. Oh, there, yes. In that case, let's select someone who can safely go that close to the river. Oh, you've been spotted.
Right, 3 entire squads come and kill this one goblin.
Right. Goblin defeated, siege over. Cancel all orders. Everyone go home, don't try to jump back across the river. We're now draining some of the water out of this river. Which is probably unnecessary, but no, it's necessary eventually because we want to get the dead dwarf out, if nothing else. Pinkbee says, and how many dwarven births? Well, that's the problem. 0. So the population is very slowly declining. Like, we've got 50 years before we actually run out of dwarves, but it is going to be quite interesting how we run down this fortress if we continue losing dwarves.
And not replenishing them.
Like, how do we organise a fortress that's slowly running out of dwarves? Like, no one needs to make food anymore in that case. We've probably got enough food to last until we run out of dwarves. which in turn means we don't need to buy anything from the merchants. Can we build our entire defensive force up out of leopards and grizzly bears and such like?
You'd have to put a sign on the door.
Yes, obviously.
And leopards swim.
Don't know. Good question. But we do know the leopards breed at least, so like we can get new leopards. Unlike the dwarves, who appear to be very reluctant to do that. I'd like to at least get that remaining goblin corpse out of the river. Right, so meanwhile, let's just check that the drains are not badly overflowing. Now the drains seem to be working okay. So how are things going down here? Right, that's still mostly waiting to be carved. So I think we want actually to ask for more track carving, and that we want to go from there down to there at least. So now we want to make that, we want to somehow build some track there. If we ask to carve that, does it work properly? Well, that one seems to work properly, doesn't it? So that may be a good sign. Why is that not shown as downward ramp? That's a bit confusing. That's an upward ramp. If we ask to build track up that ramp, we keep getting redirected. Or ask to carve track up that ramp, rather. Well, can we construct it out of stuff instead then? Carved track is always awkward because you can't really see what you're doing owing to... That seems to be carving correctly. So we don't actually need to build that one. Building rather. Oh. What materials are we building it out of? It's just, I didn't pay attention to that bit. Oh, granite. Okay, that's fine. So I think that should give us some slightly useful track. Oh, except that we don't actually want there to be a corner there, do we? We want that to be a T-junction, ideally. So meanwhile, that is a steel minecart full of magma. That pump we can stop operating. We can pull that lever. Actually, no, we could not pull that lever for now. Because first we want to adjust the setup up here to fill in more of the river. possibly, well, let's experiment and see what we can do before we try to plan the next stage of the river damming exercise. So do we actually have like carved track jobs? We don't seem to. I don't really understand how that works though. As we can see, there is now a lot of stuff that needs to be stored. Oh yes, we should find all of the caged goblins and unforbid their cages, shouldn't we? Possibly mostly just a case of unforbidding every cage, but pay at least some attention to this. Unfortunately, I don't think we can do anything useful with the cave dragon. Possibly we could try to slaughter it, I'm not sure. I think that might end poorly. We did capture a decent number, have captured, possibly not in this, not all of them in this siege, a decent number of goblins who need to be hurled into the sea. Oh, and we can raise the southern bridge and lower the northern bridge. To get things back into their standard configuration. Quite like to get that goblin corpse out of there. So I'm sure you can use cave dragons to invade hell, but probably not these ones, because these ones are loyal to the goblins. So yes, now that I've unforbidden those goblin cages, they should get automatically decaged into the sea eventually. Still a goblin corpse somewhere I would prefer it not to be. Let's try closing drain D then, seeing if we can encourage that to flow in the correct direction. So it's really unhelpful when people leave piles of rubbish on top of levers. Makes it a lot harder to find the correct lever. Okay, where is the lever for East River Drain D? We've lost it. That's interesting. East River Drain D is operated by mechanisms, but does not have a linked buildings button like, say, Drain E has. Or Drain B has. Which leads me to worry that someone has gone and, like, demolished the lever. But they must have done it quite recently. So I would have expected a, like, someone has demolished a thing message. Unless I accidentally, when intending to cancel operating the lever, demolished it again. I mean, they are quite, you need to make sure you click on that button and not that button. So possibly I clicked the wrong one when cancelling pulling the lever and have thus lost my ability to close that drain. Well, that'll be fun to fix, won't it? I think we can fix it. Well, in that case, let's close drain E instead. And yeah, probably this one as well, drain A. Like, to be fair, at least we are approaching the point where we can, where we might be able to drain the whole of the river, and therefore it'll be quite safe to start doing civil engineering work down there. All right, things are falling down that drain properly now. Not sure we've got time for a caravan. Where is the caravan anyway? Arriving through the goblins. It's a dwarven caravan. They aren't the most interesting caravans anyway. Unless you'd like to buy some caged goblins, I suppose. Right, so now we want to demolish that track as well. Actually, no, we don't need to demolish that track. Not demolish that track, that takes more time than just building a track on top of it. Not like we have a shortage of copper. Though I think I may just have asked to build it in granite, so let's try that again. Yes. So drains C and E are still operating. Yeah, that's fine. Someone will pull those levers eventually. can see there are people hauling goblin cages up. And probably dragging bits of goblin around eventually. Along with, of course, melting down their armour into more copper to allow us to build more railways to dispose of more dead goblins. Oh yes, we should do the usual thing of opening the stocks menu and unforbidding copper things in lots of categories. Unforbidding as necessary and marking for melting all of the copper crossbow bolts and copper arrows and copper mail shirts. And copper low boots. Copper gauntlets, copper helms, and the only copper cap in the fortress, copper chain leggings. Goblins don't seem to bring copper greaves with them. I mean, I think some of the copper shields might almost be usable as shields, but oh, and of course, all the copper weapons. Let us encourage at least the surviving ones to be melted down. Not that we have a use for copper crossbows after all. The goblins have left us an awful lot of those. I mean, we might even be using some of these copper tools and weapons and such, but kind of feel copper is not a good material for bows. Wow, there's a lot of copper weapons lying around in this fortress. Right. So, this smelter is going to be kept busy. That minecart will eventually be full of goblins, etc. Drain. So drain D is the one we've lost the lever for, isn't it? Drain C should be being sorted any moment now. Yes, well, I mean, I say that, no one actually seems to be doing it. Let's mark those as high priority jobs. I think there's just so much else going on now. Drain E is that one. No, that's drain A. Drain E surely still wants to be closed, yes.
Which I kind of understood why some places get you so much more percentage-wise for besieging than others. Capital, I think I understand, but and the target of whatever war. Stone harvesters.
Okay, now I'm slightly confused because I can't find the broken drain. We seem to have accidentally got that square forbidden, but which drain did I balk? That one has linked buildings. That one does not have linked buildings, but appears to be at 7/7, so appears to be properly closed. Well, we won't worry about it then. The drains all seem to be properly closed. Let's just check I haven't accidentally left anything with a scheduled lever pulling job. We'll break that again. Looks good. Right, maybe I can't open that drain, which is a much safer situation to be in. Still got some goblin parts from the previous siege waiting to be tidied up. What's going on with this merchant? They keep stepping off the square just as I'm about to click on them. You are haggard. Oh right, you've gone mad from spending too long in the fortress, which is quite common really. We'll bring a bin full of stuff up here. And then we'll see if you've got anything we want. Right, so you can see that the goblins that have been caught in cages are properly being... That needs to stay there for now. We might train that crab later. Goblins in cages are being brought up here and can then be loaded into their minecart in due course. But we're actually interested in what's going on down here, aren't we? Okay, I think there's a confusion here. We appear to be building track on top of track here. And like there doesn't seem to be any carving of track going on. I don't quite know under what circumstances that gets to happen. Because we've managed to accidentally wall a cat into that area. Well, happily cats don't really eat in this game, so I think we can just leave it there. So I don't understand what's going on there, so I'm going to cancel that. Why is that a track and not a ramp? That's no use like that. It's quite important that that should be a ramp. Right, we now need to build a new track stop here that will dump into the next square of the river. And then we can also reorganize the magma transport to empty in a new location. There. And have condition, well, frankly, do nothing for now. No, that wasn't what I meant. And once someone's built that track stop, then we can allow the dwarf to start moving more magma upstairs. Let's see if they've brought anything we were interested in. Like a wide variety of very unhelpful animals. A small amount of booze. We do have, we're still slightly shy of 10,000 booze. And like there are things here we can't make, so. The food situation, we have more than enough. I should not buy any more food, no matter how tempting it is. Similarly, we have enough crowns. No, we're not even going to buy any cheese. We will buy bookbinding, not least because it's made of native aluminium, which is kind of impressive. Like, we should at some point have a book industry here. Okay, we didn't actually bring enough stuff up here to buy the small number of things that I think it's useful to buy. That's going to be far too many, but whatever. What are all the dwarves playing at then? They're moving cages around, and yeah, and lots of corpses, lots and lots of corpses. But they're actually mostly moving the cages. And maybe changing their equipment a bit. And still brewing things, which are making bone bracelets, which is a bit silly, but there we go. Right. Yes, you can see that this stockpile is slowly accumulating goblins in cages. Thought I spotted someone here, but they weren't actually doing anything, it looks like. Here's someone hauling a caged goblin. Takes a little while to get the caged goblins back. There are at least fairly few of them because each goblin just turns into one cage, but they're still quite heavy when full of goblin. That track still hasn't been carved, and I'm pretty sure I've asked for it to be. That's actually correct now I come to think of it. Oh well, we'll fix it later. So this area does have suitable tracks and that. So I think with a bit of care we can now safely fill that with magma, but let's do that as a fairly late operation nonetheless. Has anyone built my track stop yet? Yes, they have, right. So we can at least pull that lever, which will make that door open, which will mean that that minecart full of magma is accessible and can be brought upstairs the slow way. That was a yawn. Maybe I should go to bed. Like, we're... We are in this state of we have to tidy up all of the rubbish that this last batch of goblins have brought with them, and while we're getting more efficient at it, there is still an awful lot of rubbish. And like the cage, part of the purpose of the cage traps was that by keeping the goblin and all of its armour together, we might not have to move so many objects. But the problem is that the cages are quite heavy when filled with a goblin, and need to be
Filled with less goblin.
well, and need to be hauled, and then the cage trap needs to be rearmed, which means you need to haul an empty cage back again. And yeah, it is still a bit of a faff. Plus, they're less spectacular. Well, I'm going to say less spectacular than weapon traps, but cage traps do then allow you to hurl the goblin into the sea, so that's kind of fun. Right, yes, I think we should stop for tonight, even though we haven't actually managed to dam any more of the river. Not least because there's like still some getting organised to do down here. I think I might give up on carving tracks and just build them out of rock because it's easier to see what I'm doing. But that will be later, because for now I think it is time for me to save and say good night. Good night.